Hello, my name is Omar Abasad. It is 4:54 p.m., August 10th, 2020. So I am going to today read an article to you about ESP, and it's written by Deepak Chopra. Um, if you follow my tweets today, you will get the idea that I am I am doing. I'm trying to find the right words here. I'm studying a phenomenon that's going on in the building, the phenomenon of people logging into you and affecting your body remotely with 5G type technology, microwave technology, brain altering technology, using signals. So I noticed that when certain people are logged on, and I know who they are because they actually talk about it outside the window, and they call names. Jeffrey was one name that was called. Rick. And of course, they're logging on to affect your body remotely, sexually, some of these people. And some of these people just do it to torture in a sadomasochistic way. But if you read my tweets, you will get all of that. But what I want to talk about today is ESP. So logging into somebody is actually forming a communication channel. When you log on to somebody, the intention is to communicate information via signals into the body. It could be microwave signals, it could be light, laser signals, whatever medium you're using. The intention is to communicate with the body, with the brain. And the goal is to have it one way, have that communication channel operating in a one-way fashion. So with people who have ESP, and a lot of people don't believe in ESP, it's actually been proven in science. You can go do your own research. Extrasensory perception. So I wanted to read this article that I found, and I just Googled this. No, I'm sorry. It's on the Deepak Chopra website. It's not by Deepak Chopra. It's by Dean Radin, PhD, author of Supernormal. So it's not too long. I'm just going to read this introductory paragraph he has at the top. It says, like most scientists trained in Western culture, I learned that when one encounters stories of real superpowers, the first thing that supposed to come to mind is not awe or wonder, but exasperation of how anyone beyond the age of 5 could possibly believe in such nonsense. So that's by way of introduction. I was taught that breathless tales of mind over matter or extrasensory perception, when presented as literally true, were at best a sign of magical thinking and at worst, an impending psychiatric crisis. Yeah, in the Western world, it's more like the latter. But I was troubled by a nagging sense that something was missing from my university education, something real and important, that mythology and fairy tales point to beyond metaphors. I later discovered to my surprise that the same uncomfortable feeling was shared by many of my professional colleagues. Still later, I found that this was also true, also within a larger scientific world, the larger scientific world. Despite official amusement, dismissal, and scorn heaped upon stories of the supernormal, I found that quiet interest in advanced human potentials, including psychic and mystical experiences, could be found among many scientists and scholars in the mainstream accredited academic world. In such contexts, you quickly learn not to talk about these things openly because a few people will invariably turn red and cause trouble. So the widespread interests go underground, where they percolate and wait patiently for more tolerant times. Kind of like microwave harassment and gang stalking. Where it's going to come up now because with with chipping, and we are going to be chipped, let's face it, and tracking, we're going to be mobbed and gang stalked. It will come automatically. That's part of the whole scenario we are building up to. Clashes between private and public interests has given rise to powerful taboos. In this case, the woo-woo taboo ensures that mainstream scientific interest in the supernormal continues to simmer below the surface. And all that simmering translates into a stunning statistic. In spite of opinion surveys that consistently reveal that the majority of the world's population is fascinated with psychic phenomena, far fewer than 1% of the world's accredited universities are home to even a single faculty member known for his or her scientific interest in the supernormal. Why is this taboo so robust? One reason is that college psychology and neuroscience textbooks inculcate students into believing that supernormal abilities violate the basic limiting principles of science. And a result, taking the concept of superpowers seriously evokes only mockery and shame. Few can survive in the academic world when faced with this type of stigma. So the article goes into explaining a few of the concepts that his article is based on. The idea of basic limiting principles in science was introduced by philosopher C.D. Broad in 1948. So I'm just going to skim through this and I'm going to leave out some words. He wrote that there are certain limiting principles which we are unhesitatingly taken for granted as the framework within which all our practical activities and our scientific theories are confined. So basic limiting principles. So science is okay. So maybe I should go into a little more detail here. So, limiting principles. Some of these seem to be self-evident. Others are so overwhelmingly supported by all the empirical facts that fall within the range of ordinary experiences and scientific elaboration of it, including under this heading, orthodox psychology, that it hardly enters our mind to question them. Okay, so a lot of so that's he's just making his point that there are limiting principles in which science is based, and some are very, very obvious. Broad presented these principles in 4 general categories. The first is that it's impossible to have an effect before a cause. Obvious. This law rules out any form of retrocausation, including precognition. The second rule is that direct mind-matter interactions are impossible, except perhaps if the mind changes brain activity. This eliminates any form of psychokinesis, including, did I pronounce that right? Including effects of prayer or other forms of mental healing from a distance. Third, mental events depend completely on the brain, ruling out the possibility of out-of-body states or of survival of consciousness after bodily death. Fourth, it's impossible to gain information about anything that occurs outside the body except through means conveyed by the ordinary senses. This law rules out clairvoyance or remote viewing. Psychokinesis. So that's the effects of prayer or other forms of mental healing from a distance. Okay, so those are the 4 principles that supposedly are limiting principles that scientific theories can find, within which theories are confined. In other words, students and teachers who rely on broad, basic limiting principles of science to discount the plausibility of psychic phenomena do not realize that the reason Broad stated those principles in the first place was to argue, based on the empirical evidence, that a major change in such self-evident principles was necessary. That was over half a century ago. The strength of the evidence is much, much stronger today. The law indeed violated because it was wrong. The law is indeed violated because it was wrong. The law was wrong. So he made the case that when we say that ESP does not exist, we are making that statement, or scientists are making that statement based on basic limiting principles. And the basic limiting principles are wrong. So the conclusion, in other words, students and teachers who rely on Broad's basic limiting principles of science to discount the plausibility of psychic phenomena do not realize that the reason Broad stated these principles in the first place was to argue, based on the empirical evidence, that a major change in such self-evident principles was necessary. That was half a century ago. The strength of the evidence is much, much stronger. The law is indeed violated because it was wrong. Of course, Deepak Chopra believes in ESP, of course. So there's a quote here on this page. It says, "When your mind and heart are truly open, abundance will flow to you effortlessly and easily." So this this article is just a glimpse of what is going on today with the COVID-19 situation, and the professionals know best, and all the natural cures for COVID-19 are being disregarded, and so-called science is being touted as the only answer and the only source of solutions to the COVID-19 pandemic. When the principles of the science that we know, what's being taught, the principles that those scientific studies are based on, the assumptions, the foundation themselves are sometimes untrue and very wobbly. So really, science is fluid. It's not a static study. It's always changing, simply because we don't know everything. We are still learning. Everybody's learning. So science is not fact all the time. It could be a transitory state of understanding. That's the way I like to look at it. You come up with a scientific study, you come up with a vaccine. These things are transitory on the way to getting a better understanding of what we're searching for, for the answers for that we're searching for. So in the world that we're living in right now, the world of the machine, the world of science knows best, the professionals knows best. Everything is based on science. It's a bamboozle. Because in a lot of cases, the science behind the science is very wobbly, and it is a bamboozle, sometimes intentionally so. So that was a roundabout way to make my point, but I just wanted to just bring up the idea of how, and these are professionals, of course. The professionals are questioning the science behind science. So there's something to think about. Trust your instincts. ESP is, of course, part of that instinct. Everybody has it. In the COVID-19 scenario that we find ourselves in right now, we are being presented with all kinds of information from all kinds of sources. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. Some medication works one day and the next day it doesn't work. Some agency recommends a type of medication. The next day they don't recommend it. One agency does, the other one doesn't. COVID-19 is very infectious. COVID-19 is like the flu. Vitamin D can help us. Vitamin D, is not helpful, says some. Of course, vitamin D is helpful, I should say. But you get the opposing points of view all the time. And from doctors on both sides. So what's the solution? Trust your instincts, and your instincts, ESP is part of your instincts. And you can develop your ESP by meditation. So how does that tie into my tweets and about the research that's being done in this building about people logging into you? Because if you have ESP and you're in tune with yourself, and you're not thinking like a machine, the person who logs on to you will form a two-way channel, communication channel. So let's take let's say in the future, let's step away from the scenario I'm talking about here in this building, where the logging on is meant to cause harm. Let's say in the future, when somebody logs on to you, and of course you're going to be logged on to do remote consultations with your doctor. You're going to be wearing chips that will have your vitals, heart rate, blood pressure, temperature. All these graphs are going to be accessed by your doctor remotely. This is what's happening with COVID-19. You're also going to be operated on surgically, remotely. So your body is going to be on a remote operating table, and your body is going to be imaged with very, very, very accurate detail. So your entire insides is going to be very visible, and you're going to be logged into. What's going on in this building is exactly that scenario, but it's being used to cause harm. It's been used to rape, to invade your body's openings, to rape, to violate. What's coming along with COVID-19 is going to be the same technology is going to be used officially, mainstream, to heal, to communicate, to, as I said, to operate. And it's going to be a two-way street. It's going to be a two-way street. Now, with people with ESP who's developed that ability, when that happens, there's another layer of information that is downloaded. Not only the data that is being transferred back and forth for whatever it is that's being done, an operation, stitching a cup or whatever. An extra layer of information is going to be perceived by people who's developed their ESP abilities. Because the logging in creates a channel through which information flows back and forth. And whether the person on the other end who's logging on to a patient, say for instance, whether he intends to or not, or she intends to or not, there is added information, emotional information, psychic information, spiritual information, for lack of a better word. I don't mean religious. I mean, you get a sense of the person, much like if you touch them with your hands. So right now we are touching people. Well, we're not touching them anymore, but before COVID-19, we were shaking hands. So that information is transmitted. The touch transmits information. So for people who have ESP, that information is transmitted when you're connected with a chip or you're connected with a laser channel. Keep in mind, you don't have to be chipped to be connected. There is a laser channel could be formed between your brain and a machine, or a person who's chipped. I'm not going to go into details. So you could do your own research. There could be a two-way laser communication, and this is all military research as well. And it's being done with people on the field, with soldiers on the field. Of course, chips make it easier, but as far as I understand, it's not necessary. That there is two-way communication. So if you're really, really, really sensitive, you will get more information out of that two-way channel that was formed that is intended, which is the other layer, the human layer. I hope I'm making sense. I am trying to explain this because I am logged in as I sleep at night. People are looking at me, and everybody knows this. It's one of those things, as I just read. ESP is not talked about, so it goes underground, right? Well, what is going on in this building is not talked about, so it's all underground. People are being logged into and being raped. Their brains are being pulsed with lasers and microwaves, and experiments are being carried out. We're not supposed to talk about it because the infiltrated governments are behind it, and they'll come down hard on us and say we are mentally ill and throw us in jail forever or kill us, basically. So we're not supposed to talk about it. But I think it's time that we did, only because the technology is here. It's no longer underground, and it's no longer, a conspiracy theory, and it's no longer Star Trek stuff. It's sci-fi. I mean, it's real. It's tangible. It's real. It's in our hands. We can see it. We can touch it. So this is real. So in order to maintain our humanity while we are interacting with robots, so I posted a link where robots are now serving us food instead of waiters in the restaurants. You give the robot an order, and the robot comes with a tray. You punch in your order, robot comes with a tray, brings your food over. Right, so we're going to be interacting with robots. Well, of course, people are dying off, which is very interesting, isn't it? So we'll be interacting with robots. So how do we keep our humanity when all of that happens? And it's going to happen literally overnight, just like COVID-19 did. It's going to happen like so fast, you wouldn't have time to breathe. So how do you cope with it? Keep your sanity, keep your humanity. I would suggest you start meditating, not praying, meditating. And by that, I mean, do something you really, really, really deeply love and you really deeply enjoy. Something that speaks to your soul. It could be looking at a painting. It could be painting itself. It could be looking at a painting. It could be listening to music. It could be writing poems. It could be writing a book. It could be researching a book, researching a topic that deeply affects you. Anything that speaks to your soul, to your innermost being. That's meditation. So there's a lot of, a lot of layers and a lot of dimensions to the changes that we're going through right now. And I read somewhere that, I think it was Deepak Chopra who said this, that humanity is going to the other level. We are in the throes of moving to another level of consciousness. So there's going to be chaos. Whatever the source of the chaos, COVID-19, wars, whatever it is, we still have to keep our sanity and our humanity and withstand the pain that is going to come about as we go through the changes, because every change that happens in this human condition also brings pain. Unfortunately, that's what happens because we are human. You know, if you believe in reincarnation, as the Hindus would say, you bought into it when you chose to come into the world. When you chose to come in, to be born into the world in these dimensions, then you chose to go through the pain. It's the human condition. And it's really, really sad that thinking back now in my life, that the school curriculum did not teach life, how to cope with life changes, how to cope with life, everyday life occurrences. It should be part of the school curriculum. Really should. Anyway, I'm gonna stop there. It's going on half an hour, or just about half an hour. So I'm going to show you the pulsing. Speaking of being logged on, I think oh, here we go. Yeah, so, and this is what I mean by being logged on. My heart is tagged. And between my legs were tagged all night. And I suspect several people were logged on last night. And as the pulsing happened, I could actually feel the signals go through, because your genital area is pulsed. It goes through, for women, of course, through the vagina, but for men who are sodomized, and this happens, of course, to men, the signals go through your spinal column. And once it hits your spinal column, it hits your head, your brain, right through. It comes right through into your head. And you get this, relaxing feeling, almost as if you had a drink. And it puts you to sleep. It can put you to sleep. So it's almost like a sedative. So when you fall asleep, then the real rape starts. It's like, putting drugs in a woman's drink and drugging her out and then raping her. Well, instead of drugs, this is being done with signals. When it goes through, as I said, the anus, it hits your spinal column, hits your brain, hits the whatever part of the brain that causes drowsiness, puts you to sleep. Then whatever the person wants to do to you remotely, they can hit your heart like this. They can target a specific organ. They can hit your eyes. They can work on your eyes. Just keep the pain level down so you don't wake up. Work on your eyes. Work on your ears, your nose, whatever. Now, this is exactly what's being done here in this building. Talk to you another time.